Hi there everyone, and welcome to the 5th tutorial in the SAM for Beginners tutorial series. Now in this tutorial we're going to touch the code for the first time. However, I am sorry to say that I did forget to mention some things from the previous tutorial. So that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to be quick about this and very clear, so just stay tuned and we are going to touch the code, but firstly I want to cover some things. Okay? So basically I have prepared two arrays here, and the first one actually has a define, which we haven't talked about yet. Well, we have talked about defines, but we haven't talked about this one, and this one is max player name, and this is actually the amount of characters that the player can enter when you open the client and enter a name, and this is actually equal to 24. So there's 24 cells or slots in this particular array. Now what I want to teach you as well is that a string is a collection of characters. Now if you want to change a particular character, then you have to use a character in replacement, because you cannot replace a character with the string. Now how do you actually replace a character with a character and not a character with the string? Well, firstly we have to initialize and give this array player name a value. So we're just going to write alongside, and I know that this is wrong, so actually what we want to do is to correct this. Now this character here, X, should be Z instead. Now if we count from 0, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now remember, I counted from 1 now, so if we want to count from 0, we just remove 1, correctly? So that's 4. So the actual array value, or the slot of this one, the X character, is 4. So to access it, all we have to do is write player name and then 4. This actually represents the X. Now if you were to write a string with speech marks and you were to write Z, then you would actually get an error, because this is a string. Now the way you want to add a character is to use single quotation marks, and perhaps you don't know what a single quotation mark, but basically I'm going to make this very clear now. So these are speech marks, and these are single quotation marks. Okay, so what we have to do actually is to use single quotation marks here instead, and this is going to replace the X with a C. So if we were to write this out now, it would say Alonso and not Alonso. I also got some feedback on the forums, and I really do appreciate that. I got some feedback from the user Vince, and he said that I should cover the fact that you can also use arrays for integers and other data types, and that is truly valid. And one thing which I also said in the previous tutorial was that an array always have to have an escape character, which is the null. Remember, null or \0. However, when you use integers, you do not. It's only when you have a string that you have to have an the escape character \0 or null. So actually, this one you can actually use all the 10 values. So what we can do with this high score is that basically I'm using integers for all these slots here. So the first one, which is 0, remember, because it's 0 indexed, is 42. I then give each one a value up to 9. Now remember that this is actually 10 slots, so I'm using all of them. The thing is, if I were to use a string instead, I actually can easily convert this into a string. Let's pretend that this is a string instead. Okay, so the thing is that Now I just added characters. The first one is A. I then write LONCOTOR. But as you can see here, there is only 8. And with the 0 as well, it's 9. So where is the last one? Well, remember the last one, since this is a string, is actually null. So we cannot use the last one. That's just a rule which we have to remember. So that's it. So now you should know how you can set up an array with integers, and you should also know the difference between characters and strings. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at the code. But before we do so, we have to understand what an IDE is. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Now this is going to make it easier for us, because it has features such as syntax highlighting, which will highlight some words to make the syntax more clear. It also has features such as, if you write a function, it's going to give you the arguments or parameters needed for that particular function. So it's going to make it easier for us basically. And the IDE which we're going to use is Pono. So if we head over to a SAMP folder and then the Pono folder, we should see all these files here. Now the first file is just the settings file for Pono. We do not have to enter any settings or change any of the settings here, so we're just going to leave it be. The next one is the actual IDE. So this is the program we're going to write the code in. We then have a compiler, and the compiler will basically, the IDE is going to save a file. This will be a PWN file, as you can see here. Now it will also compile, or it will ask the program above here, which is the compiler, to compile the code. And what the compiler will do, it's going to take this PWN file and it's going to translate it into something which the server understands, because the server doesn't understand human readable code. So basically it's going to convert it from a PWN file into an AMX file. Then we have the icon, of course, and some DLL files, which is necessary for Windows. And then we have an include folder, and this include folder has all the includes, and this is going to include all the native functions which SAMP offers. So what you want to do next is to just right click on Pono, go to properties, compatibility, and make sure that you always run it as an admin. If you have done so, all you have to do is to double click on Pono and it will start. Okay, since I promised you that we were going to touch the code in this tutorial, we are going to do so. However, since this tutorial is kind of getting lengthy, I'm going to cut it quite early. So we're just going to start Pono, and then we're going to head over to the file, click on new, or we could click on Ctrl+N, or we could click on this white page here. We then want to firstly remove the 3 first lines, which are comments. We then remove hashtag if defined filter script, public onFilter script init, onFilter script exit, hashtag else, as well as hashtag endif. We're then going to save it. To do so, you click on this diskette here, or you click on File, Save, or Ctrl S. What you then do is to head over to your game modes directory. You can find this in your SAMP folders, and then you go to game modes. You then give it a name. I'm just going to call mine Prima. I'm going to save it, and now we're going to compile. To compile your code, all you have to do is to click on this blue arrow. We'll click on it, and if you see no errors, then you're fine. You could also get some warnings, but for me, I didn't get any errors nor warnings. If it worked, it should say Pon compiler, the version, and copyright. We're then going to exit out of Pono. Now if you go back to your game modes directory, you should see a file called Prima, or your name, .pon, as well one .amx. The AMX one is the one which will be run by the server. So that's basically it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we're going to take a look at the code more. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you all for giving feedback on my videos, and have a nice day.